Welcome to Laughed Without Losing Yourself. This is the podcast for high-achieving women who are tired of being capable for everyone while becoming increasingly disconnected from themselves. Today, we are looking at a small behavior that creates much larger consequences, and that is saying yes before checking whether you actually have the capacity to carry what you are accepting. Because the problem is not always that you need to manage your time better. Sometimes what you need is to stop agreeing before you have told yourself the truth. Many broken commitments begin before the work has ever started. They begin in the moment someone asks, "Can you do this?" And you answer yes before you have considered what that yes will require from you. At work, an immediate yes can make you appear cooperative, capable, commitment even. In your personal life, it can make you feel supportive, generous, and loving. But a yes given without checking your capacity does not create more capacity. It simply creates a commitment that your future self will have to find a way to carry. And that is where the problems begin. The deadline gets closer. The calendar becomes tighter. The patience becomes shorter. The quality of your work starts to drop. You become irritated with the person you agreed to help, even though they may not have forced you to agree. Or you end up disappointing them because you cannot deliver what you promised. The problem is not always poor time management. Sometimes the real problem is that you agreed before you assessed. You accepted the commitment before you told yourself the truth. Capacity is more than time. When people think about capacity, they usually look at their calendar and they ask, do I technically have enough hours to fit this in? But if you think about it, capacity is not only about whether there is an empty space in your diary. Capacity also includes your ability to concentrate, your emotional bandwidth. It also includes your physical energy, the number of decisions you are already carrying, the responsibilities that are not visible on your calendar, the interruptions you are likely to face, and the level of quality the commitment actually requires. You may have 2 free hours on Thursday, and that does not automatically mean that you have the mental capacity to complete 2 hours of complex work. You may technically have time to support another person. That does not mean you have the emotional capacity to take responsibility for their problem. This distinction matters because many people continue to measure capacity only in hours while ignoring the condition of the person who must use those hours. Capacity is not a judgment of your character. Please understand this. It's just an operational fact. It tells you what you can realistically carry without compromising something else. Now, let me go to the automatic yes that many women often practice. Someone needs support, you offer it. A task has been left undone, so what you do, you pick it up. A colleague is overwhelmed, so you compensate. A family member is disappointed, what do? You just adjust your plans. You do not necessarily stop and ask yourself, what do I have available? You just ask, what does this person need from me? Difficult to recognize. Self-abandonment doesn't scream, look at me, I'm putting myself last. No. Sometimes it comes in the form of you being agreeable. Sometimes it becomes in the form of you being useful. Sometimes it looks like being the person who can always be relied upon, until you can no longer rely on yourself. And this is why it's so important to understand. Now, let's see what happens inside organizations, because the same behavior creates serious problems inside organizations as well. Let's just say an employee is given another task, and they already have 3 urgent priorities, but they still say yes. They do not state that the new deadline conflicts with an existing deadline. They do not ask which task should take priority. They do not clarify what must move. They simply accept the work. And for a while, everything appears fine. The manager believes the task is under control. The employee tries to make everything fit, works harder, longer hours. Then the deadline is missed. The work is rushed, or another responsibility is quietly neglected. When this happens, often is treated as an execution problem. But the execution problem may have started as a capacity conversation that never happened. The employee did not state their capacity. The manager, on the other hand, did not properly examine it. The organization received an agreement, but it did not receive the truth. This is why leaders need to pay attention to the environment they create around capacity. When a manager, a leader asks, can you do this? But the only acceptable answer is yes, let's be honest, it's not a question. It's an instruction disguised as a question. And over time, people learn to hide their actual workload. What they do, they say yes in the meeting and struggle privately afterwards. They do it because they don't want to appear negative, incapable, or unwilling. But please understand this. Hidden capacity problems eventually become visible performance problems. Deadlines slip, mistakes increase, communication deteriorates, people become defensive, resentment grows between team members, and leaders wonder why people are not taking greater ownership. But real ownership includes stating what is realistically possible before accepting responsibility. I want you to hear this. Capacity transparency is not laziness. There is a fear that if we start talking honestly about capacity, people will use it as an excuse. That can happen. I'm not saying it won't, but that does not make capacity irrelevant. There is a difference between avoiding responsibility and defining responsibility clearly. Saying, I cannot do that is different from saying, I can complete this by Friday, but not by Wednesday. Let me give you another example. It's different when you say, that's not my job, than I can support this for 30 minutes, but I cannot take ownership of the entire project. Or saying, I'm too busy is totally different from saying, I currently have 3 priorities, which one you would like me to move so that I can take this on. These are not statements of resistance. They are simply statements of reality. This is what's going on right now. And these statements allow people to make decisions with accurate information. And accurate information is essential for trust. A quick yes may feel helpful in the moment. An honest answer is more useful over time. I want to give you a practice which will help you become aware how much you can handle. I call this practice the capacity check. Before accepting your next commitment, pause and ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, what am I already carrying? And to not only count scheduled appointments, include unfinished work, family responsibilities, emotional strain, preparation time, and decisions that are already occupying your attention. Second question, what will this commitment actually require? And I want you to look beyond the visible task. Will it require research, travel? We tend to forget travel time, follow-up, emotional involvement. Do other people need to get involved? So I need to coordinate. Will the person expect you to remain available after the task is supposedly completed? Be honest about the full commitment, not just the first request. Third question, what will have to move? Because every meaningful yes affects something else. If you accept this, what receives less time, energy, or attention? What might be delayed? What will you have to do faster? What promise to yourself are you likely to break? There is almost always a cost. The purpose is not to make you afraid of committing. It is to make the cost visible before you decide. Last question. What can I honestly offer? Your answer does not have to be a complete yes or a complete no. You may be able to offer a different deadline, a smaller contribution, limited availability, a recommendation instead of direct involvement, or support without ownership. An honest offer is more valuable than an automatic yes, followed by resentment or poor delivery. You must also pay attention to the language you use. You can say, I would like to help, but I need to check what I already have committed before I answer. I can take this on if we move the deadline for the other priority. I can contribute to this, but I cannot lead it. I have capacity for 30 minutes, not the full afternoon. I cannot deliver this properly by Wednesday. Friday probably will be more realistic. I'm not available for that, but I can support or I can suggest another option. None of these statements are aggressive. What they are clear. Clarity may disappoint someone temporarily, but overcommitting and failing them later is also disappointing. The difference is that clarity gives both people the opportunity to make a better decision. What I want you to pay attention to is that beneath all this, there is a deeper behavior, and it is not only about productivity. It is more about self-leadership. Can you tolerate the discomfort of not immediately pleasing the person in front of you? Can you pause long enough to consult yourself? Can you tell the truth before circumstances force the truth out of you? Can you allow someone to be disappointed without rushing to rescue them from that feeling? Because many unnecessary commitments are not created by genuine capacity. They are created by our discomfort with someone else's reaction. We say yes to avoid appearing difficult. We say yes because we want to be seen as dependable. We say yes because we are afraid another person will think less of us. But dependability is not measured by how quickly you agree. It is measured whether your word can be trusted. And your word becomes more trustworthy when it's based on an honest assessment of what you can deliver. This is what I am suggesting to you as this week's practice. Before you accept one new commitment this week or for the next 7 days until we meet again, do not answer immediately. Pause for a couple of seconds. Check what you have already in your schedule. Check your commitments. Identify what the request will actually require. Decide what would have to move. Then state what you can honestly offer. It may sound like a small behavior, but I want you to remember this. Small behaviors create larger outcomes. In organizations, this behavior improves planning, accountability, and trust. In your personal life, it protects you from repeatedly promising away your own energy. It has nothing to do with you stopping being generous or becoming unavailable or unwilling. What you need to do is to stop treating your capacity as though it does not deserve to be part of the conversation. Because every time you have an honest answer, you strengthen two relationships. The relationship other people have with your word and the relationship you have with yourself. Before you accept one new commitment this week, pause and check what are you already carrying. Then give an answer that reflects your actual capacity rather than the answer you believe will make you easier to like, manage, or rely upon. If you recognize that you have been carrying too much for too long, you can take the balance or burning out assessment through the link in the episode description. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, much love.